Oh, interesting.
We are live and ready when you are, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Seldovia City Council on Thursday, June 17th, 4:30 p.m. And we'll go ahead and have a roll call. Morrison.
Here.
Rojas.
Here.
Peyton.
Here.
Nathan.
Here.
Sweat.
Here.
Colberg.
Here.
Okay, we do have everyone in attendance and we do have a quorum. And Heidi, if you can go ahead, since you're in council, if you can go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, that'd be great.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Excused absences, we have none. Agenda approval. We'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda by Rojas. Second, I didn't catch who seconded that.
That was Colbert, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Goldberg seconded. All those in favor, Morrison?
Aye.
Rojas?
Aye.
Peyton?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
Sweat?
Aye.
Goldberg?
Aye.
Okay, motion to approve tonight's agenda is approved. Item E, consent agenda. We do not have a consent agenda tonight. Mayoral proclamations, none. Public presentation, prior notice, none. Public presentation for items not on the agenda. That's item H. Heidi, do we have anyone that wishes to speak for items not on the agenda?
And people just want to stand up and say something?
For items not on the agenda. For items not on the agenda, you can stand up. If it's directly about the mill rate or the veto, then that'll be during that
No, it's
discussion.
just a question and a thought.
About the mill rate,
But
about the mill rate or about a separate issue?
I think it's separate.
Oh, okay, yes. Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have one.
Okay, sounds good.
Do I do that?
You can either use the podium, which might work easier. And then just state your name for the record.
Sure. Steve Bainbridge. Right on the Seldovia program. And this is a question I would like somebody to answer. It doesn't have to be tonight. But my question is, how many pieces of property does the city own? And the second part to this question is, would it be appropriate for the city to sell some of these pieces of property, put them on the tax rolls, raise some money by selling property, and also get the benefit of the taxes on that property that they've sold? That's all I'd like to pose. I'd like a response somehow, either an email ID or however you get back on that. Thank you.
Hey Heidi, we're having a little bit of hard, I did catch most of that. We're having a little hard time. Maybe if we could turn up the council chambers mics just a hair, or maybe it's just that public mic.
Thank you. I had
Yes.
a problem with that too.
Sounds like they're maxed out, so we'll just remind people to speak closer.
Heidi,
Can you
you're
hear me clearly? Your mic's off, sorry. The mics are maxed out, is what Radzi's letting me know. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, not like usual, but that's okay. We're getting it.
Okay, I think maybe just reminding people to speak closer to the mic will help too.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Okay, so I'm assuming we'll get the administration can respond at a later date, or either through email or letter to that question with specifics?
Can do, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else on items not on the agenda?
I'm not seeing any at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And that'll take us down to item I, committee and advisory board reports. We have none. Item J, administrative reports, none. That'll take us to item K, public hearings. Item 1, memorandum from Mayor Campbell regarding veto of resolution 21-33, which was the mill rate for FY 2022. So you want me to go ahead and take the lead on this, Rachel, or how do we want to do this?
However you would like, Mayor, if you would like to speak to your veto first, that could be the process, or City Clerk Gagel has a memo going over the mayoral veto process. And then there's an accompanying memo that I wrote just explaining overall what the mill rate is and the impact of property taxes. So you can go first, or we can present that material first.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I can go ahead and just speak first. I had submitted after our meeting, of course, the other night, I had expressed my interest that I had planned to veto the mill rate increase from 7.5 to 7.75. And at that meeting, there was some confusion over the veto process because it obviously isn't used very often. And so at that point, rather than have a big conundrum that night, I chose to withdraw my veto on the evening of the council meeting, and then subsequently followed up with staff the next morning after they were able to follow up with our city attorney and the borough attorney and borough finance to get some more questions and answers. And we obviously have got a number of those answers in the packet. And then at that time, once we straightened out the process, I went ahead and followed the process, reaffirmed my veto of the increased mill rate, and then submitted in writing to the city manager my reasons why. And I can quickly read those for the record for those that don't have it in front of them. And again, it's not all encompassing. The code doesn't stipulate much about the reasons, but I went ahead and I wrote them out. Number 1, I believe the mill rate increase from 7 point to 7.75 was a short-sighted decision by council that is trying to compensate for the latest decrease in the overall assessment roll value. On top of already being the city with the highest mill rate on the Kenai Peninsula, the additional 0.25 increase only injects a very small amount of money back into the general fund on the backs of those that are actually paying property taxes. Number 2, there needs to be a long-term solution reached to the continuing budget problems that take into account both revenue and expenses outside of direct taxation on the small number of citizens that currently live in and pay taxes in Soldovia. The city has a number of land assets that need to be looked at as an opportunity for more long-term revenue opportunities, either by sale or lease of these properties. And number 3 was, if the council continues to try and fix the budget with short-term, quick, easy fixes, such as a mill rate increase, then they will not take the necessary hard steps to look at solving the root problems of our budget, which are lack of population, aging infrastructure, and underutilized city assets, referring to property. So and then I did say, for further clarification, the Soldovia Municipal Code does not go into any detail on the specifics or merits of how or why the reasons may or may not have any validity to them or be evaluated in any way. And that's in terms of my reasons for the veto. And then I guess that would be up to council to decide when and if they decide to try and overturn the mayoral veto. And I believe that's also consistent with the Alaska state statute as well. So that's short and simple. I voiced that at the meeting, and I voiced it in writing, and then we'll just let the public process play out here. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll ask City Clerk Gable to go over the process for a mayoral veto and how council could overturn it if there's a motion to do so.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
So we did discuss with the city attorney, and he had recommended that we follow our municipal statute, or not statute, sorry, but our municipal code. And on page 14 of the packet, there's a memo from the office that speaks to the mayoral powers or veto procedures. You can see towards the bottom of the page 14, it references SMC 2.08.050, duties and powers, and that code is listed there. Following that is a section that just goes over really what a veto is. It's just simply that rejection or refusal to allow the enactment of the measures adopted by the council, and it can take place outside of the meeting. Or as it happened that evening, it could have taken place in the meeting, because our code does state that the veto can happen, and then the mayor would provide the council with his written reasons by the next regular council meeting. So, and that veto can take place anytime before that next regular meeting. Also, the code speaks to the fact that the veto may be overridden by 2/3 of the body within the next 21 days or at the next regular meeting. And that it references, if you read the code, that's after it states at the top of the page, within 21 days following the veto. So if the veto is in the meeting, if it's his verbal veto or outside of the meeting, even if the written statement is not accompanied yet, that he's stated his wishes for the veto, anytime within that next 21 days, which of course would have to be in a meeting, so a special meeting can be held, or at the next regular meeting, whichever happens later, the council can act to override. So there was some confusion that night, and the way we're understanding it now is that the veto could have occurred that evening, and the council could have acted if they wished, or the veto occurred the next day, and that's perfectly fine too. The situation was a little bit differently for those that are not aware of what took place because of the deadline, and that's why there was a lot of confusion. There's a borough deadline to set the tax mill rate before June 15th, and the meeting was on the night of 14th, so there was a lot of confusion, a lot of back and forth, but we were able to clear it up the next day, like the mayor said, with speaking with our attorney, who's on the line if there's any questions. The borough attorney and borough finances. It also, we reached out and I spoke with some of the other clerks and resources to us. And it does say veto presented at the meeting, which is the step we're taking now. That the written explanation will be presented as a action item memorandum from the mayor, as it is this evening. And as a non-voting member of the council, the mayor presided over that meeting and the discussion on the veto. If the veto is overridden by 2/3 of the body, the legislation that was vetoed will stand and nothing further is needed. If the veto is not overridden, then the legislation has died and not enacted. And so for those of you that don't have an agenda, the order of the meeting tonight will be that we'll discuss the memorandum, and then based on what the council and mayor decides at that time, should there need to be, the next discussion will be a resolution. If the veto hasn't been overridden, that way council can set a mill rate. Because we found out, and it is in a letter here from the city manager, that if a veto, or sorry, if a resolution is not passed to set the mill rate, then the mill rate for Seldovia will be 0. So that's the discussion, going to be the discussion tonight. First, whether they'll override, and then secondly, if needed, what the mill rate will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and turn it over to council for discussion.
I could get clarification. This discussion right now is on item K1, Mr. Mayor, or?
Yeah, item 1 on the on my memo, and then the veto itself at this point. And then we'll discuss that, and then we'll go to public comment, and then we'd go back to council and look for a formal motion, I assume, to override the veto, and then would be voted up or down.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would say that no one in this room disagrees with your points that you made in your veto of resolution 21-33. I think the problem that council has, and it's great to see everybody here, usually controversy brings people into this room, which is always good to see. The council is in a situation of what to do with our budget, and our fiduciary duty is to pass a balanced budget. Doing the mill rate 0.25 is minimal. It's helpful, but it's minimal. And we do have the council and city manager and staff have got a big duty ahead of us this past year, which our mayor brought up. And that is looking through our land, or looking at our land that we have, properties. What can we do with them? That's going to take a while for that to happen. It isn't going to happen overnight. That's work in progress. Finding lost revenues, which we discussed the other night. We've got a lot ahead of us in order to take care of our budget. Why is Seldovia at the 12.25 more than any of the other communities on the Kenai? Bottom line is we're a first-class city. We have water and sewer. We have a city to operate infrastructure, but we don't have the amount of people. That's our problem. That's bottom line. That's our problem. If we had a bigger population, Homer's right up to 11-point-some% per mill rate. If we had a larger population, we would be sitting here right now trying to figure out how to save nickels and dimes. So our duty is to find out how to keep the city operating, how to keep paying the bills and keep our staff and keep water and sewer to your homes, plus the roads and everything else. So there's nothing on here that I would argue about with our mayor. It's going to take time for us, and time, I hope we can do it within the next year. I'm hoping we can find some lost revenue that's not being collected within the next 3 months. And I know all of council is on board to do that. But I think if this veto holds, that I will say to everybody in the public that there may be some budget cuts that you're not going to be happy with. We may not be able to plow as often as you want, et cetera, et cetera. Those things could happen. But that's all just part of the situation we're in. But I appreciate the mayor doing his fiduciary duty and his guidance. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vivian. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
I think Vivian has pretty well hit everything right on the head. I don't believe anyone in this room wanted to increase the mill rate. I think we all felt that we had our backs to the wall, we had to do something. Also, these problems that we're having didn't come up overnight. It's been a long time building. Of course, COVID had a huge effect on our budget and what we have to spend. I'd just like to say one more thing, and that is a city or any level of government pays its bills and provides its services by taxing our constituents. I mean, this isn't rocket science or something from out of the world. I never saw anything in the job description for city council saying out of the box or, creative thinking or whatnot. So yes, we reverted to the easy fix, but that's pretty much what our duty is to do. We've got to come up with some revenue from somewhere. Sometimes we're at a point where it's got to be sooner rather than later. And I would say again to the mayor, I certainly respect you taking the position you did. I intend to change my position to support your veto. And I think most everybody in the room here is going to do the same thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. Anyone else that cares to speak?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Pearlie.
Yeah, I've been on this council, this is my second term, and we've been beating this horse for a long time as far as we need to utilize our land, sell it, do something with it. always seems to get dropped around mill rate time when we raise it up. And all that stuff gets put on the back burner once again, and it's never mentioned. I think we need to do a little better in our follow through when we come up with a good idea. Sometimes it seems to just go by the wayside, and I don't quite understand why, but I think it's a lot of it is this quick little fix. Okay, we're okay. We made our budget and we'll deal with it next year. It's I don't know, when it comes to the finance and that kind of stuff, it's a little bit over my head. I'm a simple country boy, but I think we have some great assets here that nobody's gonna like. A lot of people don't like change, but we have to start changing, because if we ain't growing, we're dying. I would hate to see this little town go by the wayside. So I think we need to put our heads together and get public participation in our meetings. It's great to see everybody here. We're usually here by ourselves. We work for you people. We need to hear your input, and we need some help. We need some help making decisions. We're trying, but you said everybody's going to change their opinion. I think I'll stick with what I said. Thanks.
Thank you, Pearlie. Anyone else on council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a comment.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so, not to outdo Curly, but this is my third term, and I totally get where he's coming from. We've discussed things over and over and over. I don't know how many times I can say over without sounding really dumb. But over and over again, somehow we talk about certain things and it's, well, let's save that for another time. And for some reason, we don't want to address certain things. I don't understand why, but it's frustrating me to no end. I agree with finding other avenues for revenue, which I think we're on the right track this year to do that. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, believe me. If any of you people think this is fun or an easy thing to do, you're sadly mistaken, because it is not. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I think we'll go ahead at this time and turn it over to the public for anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, if you'll please approach the podium if you'd like to speak and state your name for the record.
Thanks, Mayor.
My name is Jenny Chisholm.
I just have a couple things to say. I kind of said my piece a little bit last meeting, but in reviewing the packet for tonight, I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but out of 475 properties here in the town, in our city, 130 are exempt from paying taxes. And the revenue, or the assessed value of the paying citizens is $38,830,600. The assessed value of the exempt properties is also $38,744,600. So there's a difference of $86,000 between exempt properties and paying properties. So what that tells you is that a small, even though it's 345 properties that are paying taxes, the value of the properties not paying taxes is significant. So obviously we're not changing any of that, but the reality of that really tells you that you're increasing the taxes on people that are going to pay them, not people who are exempt, right? So we've got to get a lot of money from half of the assessed value in our town. So I think it's a really important thing to consider. In real estate, that's my business, and looking at, the city owns about 50 properties here in town, to answer your question, Steve. And some of those properties are actually leased, and therefore they are taxed, as I understand it. And I didn't dig through a whole lot, but leased properties are taxed, is that correct? Okay. So there are a couple that are leased and therefore potentially taxed. I was looking just at a few properties that I thought might be properties that the city could consider releasing. I don't believe the city releasing all their properties, it's a huge asset, and there's a limited amount of properties, but there are choice properties that could be developed, which would raise the tax base. But not just that, but the influx of the sale is going to easily cover the 10 to 14,000 that we're talking about in raising this mill rate. So there's one lot, let me get my glasses on the lake, and this may be very controversial, because it's a pavilion on the lake. But I sold a couple lots on the lake, and we could easily triple the amount that's needed by selling that one lot this year to make up for this little hiccup that we're having. There's also a half acre on Anderson that's assessed at 41,000. Well, as we all know, typically assessed values are less than market value. So that's one lot that might help us get over this hurdle to figure out new plans, right? Right now, the real estate market's pretty good. There's a lot of people looking, and inventory is like this. So it's a good time, and I don't think it would take forever to sell these potential lots. There's also 6 lots right on Anderson, right when you pass Young Street. It looks kind of swampy there, but there's 6 properties. They're zoned waterfront commercial residential. Awesome zoning, probably the best zoning in town because you can have a house, you can do a business. So it's a really great zoning that somebody who might want to run a business or build a little home can set up their property there. Those properties each are assessed around 20 grand. So they could sell for more than that, right? So there's 6 of them. And I don't know what kind of contingencies you can put on the sale of a property. That's an attorney question, if there are any. But I see when I took these 5 different situations here, and I looked at about 316,000 in assessed value, which would probably be, without being crazy, it'd be 400 grand or so that we could liquidate this summer if the city wanted to pursue that option. I just wanted to say that this quick solution solves an immediate issue, but it really puts the burden in the wrong place. I really think the city needs to look at their assets, look at their options, and understand that there are a lot of people here who obviously care about this, who want to help bring solutions to the table. And I guess that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, if you can please approach the podium and state your name for the record.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, this is Laurel. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear, Laurel.
All right, great. So my name is Laurel Hiltz. I live at 279 Shoreline Drive. I am a private citizen and I pay property tax on my property. So they'll group me in there, but I am nobody. And the reason I'm nobody is because Pearlie says nobody comes to city council meetings, and I do. I come to every single one. So I might have missed 3 in the last 6 years, and I apologize, right? So, but I have the privilege of being able to attend the meetings, and as a result, I get to participate and follow the process and get a sense of the timeline and things as they happen. So with that, I just thought it would help a little bit, and I'm not pulling out huge notes, just little notes, but I did make notes for this to know that there was a point in time when Rhonda Robertson, who used to be the CFO for the city, she came to a city council meeting and she said, hey, there's some glaring issues financially for the city's budget. It's a pretty big deal. It needs to be addressed. And the great thing was that the council said, hey, yeah, it does. And the city manager at the time was Todd Larson. And he started really going through the numbers with Cassidy, and he did a bunch of slideshow presentations, you know, learning about where the money was spent and where the big spending was occurring, where there were lawsuits and workman's comp claims and all kinds of things that were happening, and how money was being pulled out of funds that, you know, the hope had been that it wouldn't be. In the meantime, we're continuing to operate as a first-class city, and as a first-class city, there's obligations and requirements, and as was mentioned, we're a first-class city with, on the Kenai Peninsula Borough, there's only 4 more, and it's Homer, Soldotna, Kenai, Seward. One of these is not like the others, right? So we have an obligation to provide an infrastructure. We have an obligation to provide an infrastructure, but as Jenny so clearly pointed out, we don't have the numbers of the property tax revenue capable to do that. And so that's a bigger picture issue that, you know, hopefully we're looking at long term, and maybe we go to being a second-class city, but I digress. So we had that information come forward, and at that time, there was an opportunity for the city government as a whole to begin to do these active efforts and take these measures to problem solve. And I think in little ways those things happen, but in other ways we continued our patterns that maybe were less helpful. So as a result, I think we got to the point where we maybe have some white elephants in our world here. And things like, you know, we had a value-added processing plant. It's been around for longer than the last 5 or 6 years, but it's a white elephant. We have some kiosks that were purchased and with a good intention of economic development, but that's about a $30,000 elephant. And if we look at our current fiscal, trying to match our budget, we're around $30,000, you know, so we have those things. But what I really appreciate is that the city manager has stepped in and said, listen, where we're at and where we're headed, if we act the way we've acted, it's not okay. And we're in crisis mode, and I get that. But in all of that, throughout all of that time, your property owners have paid the taxes. And when the council member Rojas brought forward that we needed to raise the mill rate maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, that was a tough decision. But every year that 7.5 remained, and the council and the city government didn't make the changes. And now we're at a point where, again, we're calling on our property owners and our really hardworking business owners, I believe, to take up part of the responsibility of the decisions that have been made by the city government. So I would encourage us to remain with this veto and have a really great year of going forward and maybe bringing work groups together and having committees and what can we do to brainstorm and use the brilliant minds of Jenny Chisses and others to figure this out, but not put it on the back of your property owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel. Anyone else, Heidi?
Yes, please state your name for the record.
I'm Christine Brandon, and owner of Sylvia Trading Post, just the next block over. My husband and I purchased a home about 3.5 miles out last summer, and just closed on that building about 2 weeks ago. And I agree with Mayor Campbell. You know, the 0.25 mill rate increase is not much, and I understand, you know, maybe the need to do it, but I think that we can go about it in a different way. I think increasing it is, I think it's really the principle. You know, I think there are other responsible ways that we can do that. I know that we started a business, you know, with very little and continue to grow in a very short amount of time. And it really comes down to money management. And so therefore I, you know, liken that to the city council and, you know, think that we need to really focus in on our budget. I think Jenny has some great ideas. I think there's some other ideas too. I think there's a lot of potential, and increasing rates or layering in other rates, maybe with a harbor or, you know, Jackalock Bay, or, you know, I don't know all of the ins and outs, but I do think that there are some other opportunities, and it shouldn't be, I guess, the property owner's responsibility, to be able to gamble to that, especially when we're talking about having one of the highest mill rates in the borough. I'm not 100% positive, but typically those mill rates don't go down, they continue to go up. So just my thought.
Thank you, Christine. Anyone else, Heidi?
Anybody else like to approach the podium? I'm not seeing any more hands at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we'll go ahead then. That'll conclude public presentation. We'll bring it back to final action, and I'll just offer one more comment before we go to council. Yeah, I just reaffirm a couple things. Just listening to the public comments and then the comments from council. Yeah, it's agreed. This job is not an easy job, especially when we're in the financial situation that we are as a city. And it's not just us. It's not just our city. There's many cities, especially many small cities across the state that are in the exact same position as us. They're constantly struggling to balance revenues and expenditures, and always seem to be coming up just a little bit short. And as small towns continue to decrease in population and decrease in businesses, that's only going to get worse. I believe Seldovia is on the cusp right now of just the opposite of that. We have had we don't have the for sale signs that we used to have. We have some flourishing businesses. We have new people coming into the community. We have our school kids are about to explode from where they were the last couple of years in terms of enrollment. Things are starting to turn around, and it's been a long road and hard climb to turn things around. But I think we're doing that. So I think what we've heard here tonight, and by me acting or enacting and using the veto power, I think we've got a good start for the discussion to move forward and look at other opportunities to get this solved. We've got the means to do it. Now we just have to have the hard conversation to do this. We need to have public input. We're not used to getting a lot of public input. We get very limited public input usually, unless it's on something that's very controversial. So, public lands, City of Seldovia owned lands, some of those are used by the people every day. Others are junkyards, if you will, may appear to have no value, but they certainly do have some value. One thing I can reaffirm is that vacant lands with no improvements on them, they do nothing. They do nothing for our tax base. They do nothing to grow our community. So I would encourage that we, as we get more improvements on properties, our tax base will grow. Hopefully that is a product of increased population with people either purchasing or moving here or choosing to improve those properties and, move their business operation here. So that is all I've got for now. And I hope that the council will consider not overturning the veto. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
could I just ask a quick question of our attorney?
Sure, absolutely.
Yes, sir. If the city did sell a piece of our property, is it legal or feasible, possible for the city to finance that? Or like a sale by owner deal where we could collect interest on a loan that or whatever, just finance the sale of the piece of fair property. Can we do that legally?
Absolutely.
So then we could sell the property, make the profit on the sale, and also collect the interest, which is a very nice investment.
Absolutely. You can do that. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question, George. Appreciate the answer, Joe. Anyone else on council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
I was just gonna let you know, Mr. Mayor, that I will not proceed with an overturn of your veto based on the community members that I hope to see more at council every time that we meet. It'd be great to have people here to get their input. I think we've got a big job ahead of us, and I think we can do it. I think there's a lot of positives happening, and it's just a matter of working forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vivian. I appreciate those comments, and yeah, that's I agree. Big job ahead, and so I guess just to cut to the chase, if at this time, if someone wants to make a motion to override, that is certainly your prerogative. If there is no motion, then that would basically by default leave the veto in place, and then we would need to proceed on a subsequent action to actually enact a mill rate by resolution. So do we have any motions at this time? Okay, hearing none, then that'll be a no action. And someone correct me if I'm wrong, either Joe or Heidi, that would then allow the veto to stand, and we would have to proceed on to item K2, resolution. It says 21-38, but was that a typo, and is it supposed to be 21-33?
No, Mr. Mayor, this is a new piece of legislation because the original legislation is now been vetoed, so.
Okay,
New piece of legislation, and it does speak, it has a whereas, and it gives a little brief rundown of why.
okay, so then we will go ahead and move on to, and pardon me, because I looked in so 2138, where is it is there a 2138 in the packet, or am I just missing it here?
Page 25, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, next to last page. Okay, there it is. All right. Okay, so we'll move on then to item K2, resolution 21-38, a resolution of the City Council of Seldovia, Alaska, establishing the property tax mill levy rate at 7.5 for fiscal year 2022. Quick presentation by staff.
Thank you, Mayor. So resolution 21-38 is almost identical to the original resolution 21-33 before it was amended. The only difference is that it states, whereas the Kenai Peninsula Borough requires a municipality's mill rate to be established before June 15 of each year. And then the new whereas is on June 15, 2021, the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly voted and approved an extension to the City of Seldovia to establish the mill rate by Friday, June 18th. So we are granted a special exception in order to set the mill rate. And as City Clerk Gagel mentioned, if we did not have a piece of legislation passed by Seldovia City Council for the mill rate, our mill rate would be 0. So it's important that council take action tonight, since we have only until tomorrow to set a mill rate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. All right, so we have resolution 21-38 in front of us now to consider, and we'll go ahead and take it back to council discussion.
Make a motion first. It's 25. I have to have a motion first before discussion.
Nope, we'll do that when we get down to item D.
This just keeps it at the current mill rate. I agree.
Okay, I'll just offer a quick comment then. Yeah, I would agree that resolution 21-38, leaving the mill rate at 7.5 is appropriate, given where we're at with our finances, obviously taking into account the discussion that the council and the community just had and looking forward to other means of solving our financial problems with our current budget. With that, we'll go to the public. If anyone from the public wishes to speak on Resolution 21-38.
I'm not seeing anybody, any hands raised at this time or anybody approaching the podium, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. That'll conclude the public presentation on Resolution 21-38. That'll take us back to council for final action. And this is where I would look for a motion on Resolution 21-38.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 21-38. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Colberg to adopt Resolution 21-38. Second by Nathan. All those in favor, Morrison,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan. Sweat, Colberg, I think John got overridden by the baby there. Was that it?
Yeah, I'm aye.
Okay, motion passes to accept Resolution 21-38. And I just want to say thank you to council. I appreciate your everyone's support on that. Item L, unfinished business, none. Item M, new business, none. Item N, city manager's report, none. Item O, informational items not requiring action, none. Item P, executive session, none tonight. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. We'll start off with Morrison.
Yeah, it's great to see a good bunch of public here and thanks for all your input and in my defense, Laurel, I thought you was part of the council.
Thank you, Burley. Rojas.
Thank you everyone for attending, and hopefully we'll see you at our next meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Peyton.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo my appreciation for all the community members that were able to attend. I'd like to express my appreciation to Mayor Campbell for facilitating this conversation. I know that may not have been your original intent, but I think that we all feel better about going from here. So anyways, thank you ladies for all your hard work, and thank you for our borough representatives for attending as well. Tilly says good night.
Thank you, Harmony. George.
Yeah, I agree with everybody, especially I'm glad to see democracy at work here, that our constituents actually showed up and made their opinions known. We were able to extinguish the torches and send the pitchforks home. Anyway, glad it turned out the way it did. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Sweat.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming and for making me so popular with all your phone calls the last couple of days.
Thank you. And Mr. Colberg.
Thank you everybody for coming. I missed the last meeting. I find it interesting that roughly 50% of the properties owned in Seldovia are non-taxable. So we definitely need to get some more property out there that is taxable, which I agree with. It's long past due. Thank the staff for all the hard work. It's been a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I'll just finish up. Yeah, I appreciate the way that the public process has played out. Obviously, I'll just reaffirm that I take the position of, the elected mayor seriously, as do all the council members that are also elected by the community. And certainly the use of a veto should never be used lightly, because that usually means, one person is going against the wishes of an entire body. So, and it's, So that hopefully this will be used very sparingly. That's the first time I've ever seen it used since I've been in Soldovia 9 years. And so I appreciate the way, again, it all played out. And thank you to everyone that showed up from the public to issue your concerns, address your concerns. And thank you for the phone tree for those of you that did get calls. So our next meeting will be, a regular meeting will be held on June 28th, 2021 at 6 p.m. And if I could get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And we have a motion to adjourn and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, we are adjourned. All right. Thank you, everyone. Joe, thank you for attending tonight. We appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Kind of cool.